Hey, what is going on, guys? In this video today, we're going to be discussing how Epic's recent attempt to quote-unquote nerf aim assist has pretty much been a total failure. So a few weeks ago, as I'm sure we all remember, legacy aim assist and settings were totally removed from Fortnite. They announced it was going to be removed at the beginning of March, then for some reason they delayed it a few weeks, which made people think they possibly had changed their mind, but eventually they followed through on their promise. Now, when this was initially announced, the majority of mouse and keyboard players were celebrating like it was their birthday or something. For the longest time, they had been complaining about the infamous L2 spamming, and they assumed that anytime they got beamed out of the air, it was because of legacy aim assist. So at least in my opinion, Epic removing legacy was basically them trying to throw mouse and keyboard players a bone. They didn't want to do anything too harsh to where it would make a lot of controller players quit the game or anything, but I think it's pretty clear that the removal of legacy was at least partially due to feedback by the community. I mean, if they had planned to remove legacy from the beginning, it makes no sense for them to have waited 6+ months to do so. They would have done it right away after adding linear and expo into the game. However, in an interesting little twist that not many people were expecting, removing legacy aim assist and settings has only made controller players more powerful than ever before. So we're going to explain why that is, the Fortnite community's response, and what it means for console and controller players going forward. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so to kick this discussion off, I want to start with a pretty hilarious sequence of tweets that kinda sets the stage for this. So on the day it was announced that legacy was being removed, a pro player named FreyFN first tweeted, "Yeah, linear might be more OP than legacy, but I'd rather go into a box fight knowing my opponent can hit every shot than get lasered down to really low HP from a long distance." He then followed that up about 30 minutes later with, "All the legacy players be like, linear is more OP, you'll be even more mad now. Why were you on legacy instead of linear then? LOL," in all caps. So then we fast forward a little less than a month later to this. First, I've gotten lasered out of the sky from 2 controller players back to back, Bully and Beanie. Linear is so overpowered. Then outplaying your opponent and then dying to linear aimbot is the best experience ever. Can't wait to play Valorant, LMAO. So that string of tweets right there from Frey pretty much perfectly illustrates what a lot of players expected when legacy was removed versus the actual results. Now that every controller player has been forced to switch to either linear or exponential, it actually seems like controller players are having more success than ever before. A few weeks ago in the Shadow Cash Cup on NA East, for probably the first time in Fortnite history, more controller players placed in the top 1,000 than mouse and keyboard players. Now sure, that's a cash cup and those formats have always been a little more geared towards controller players because of how they reward eliminations, but then take a look at this data from week 1 of the duo's FNCS. You see that in every region except for EU and SE, which honestly I don't even know what that stands for, even though there's still a higher percentage of mouse and keyboard players in the top 1,000 than controller players, it honestly isn't by that much. Most regions are at about 40-60, and I'd wager that's the closest it's ever been to being even. So because of all that, for probably the 100th time in Fortnite history, aim assist has become the topic in the community that everybody is talking about. I think what really kicked it off was that even Ninja chimed in with a pretty strong opinion. "Just played with a controller on PC for the 2nd time in 2 days. I've competed in several games at a competing level on both controller and mouse and keyboard. You cannot tell me with 100% strength, aim assist, and linear settings that using a controller isn't aimbot." Now, even though I think that statement is definitely an over-exaggeration, it sure did get people talking. So much so that a few days later, it even got to a point where hashtag Nerf aim assist was one of the top trending topics on Twitter. I could show you a million different tweets from a whole variety of pros and popular content creators, but I'm guessing you guys have probably seen at least a few of them already, so you get the point. They basically think aim assist is overpowered and they want it to be nerfed. So if Epic's plan was to remove Legacy in hopes the top mouse and keyboard players would stop complaining, that plan ended up being a pretty massive failure. So here are my thoughts on this whole debacle and what it means going forward. First off, mouse and keyboard players that constantly complained about Legacy aim assist and then celebrated when it got removed were just totally foolish. Even though I was a Legacy player myself, I said on multiple different occasions that I thought Linear/Expo was slightly better as a whole. And if you looked at the top players, even though guys like Unknown, CRR, and Wavy Jacob were nasty with Legacy, in total, there were definitely more pro-level controller players on Linear and Expo. Now, even though I've seen mouse and keyboard players say a lot of stupid stuff about aim assist recently, there's one point I generally agree with. I think that as a whole, the Linear/Expo playstyle is way more frustrating to deal with than Legacy. Sure, I guess you're a little less likely to get beamed out of the air without L2 spamming being in the game, but I'd argue it's even more frustrating to die to a guy who just holds down right trigger at your front wall, eventually phases through it, and then outguns you with a white SMG when you're using a blue pump. There's a reason why I land agency and try to get the drum gun in almost every game I play. The things you can do with that weapon on the new aim assist are just absolutely unreal. There's a reason why when I get the Mythic Scar, I basically use it as my SMG. Even though it's an AR, on Linear, I can just jump into people's boxes and outgun even really good players who are using a shotgun. However, despite all that, here's why nerfing the new aim assist would be a massive overreaction. As I and many other people have pointed out, we're currently in the best meta for controller players in recent memory, if not all of Fortnite's history. You can go back and check. I literally uploaded a video at the very beginning of this season titled something along the lines of, "Here's why controller players are gonna dominate in Chapter 2 Season 2. And the reason I listed were fairly straightforward. Controller players typically have an advantage with ARs and SMGs, and right now there are a bunch of those weapons in the game that are really strong. Mouse and keyboard players typically dominate with shotguns, and as of right now, the shotguns we have are fairly underwhelming. And maybe most importantly, up until the beginning of Chapter 2 Season 2, mouse and keyboard players at least had traps to punish controller players who jumped into their box, but obviously those are now gone. And the cherry on top of all that is if you look at the three most powerful mythical weapons, the Scar, Drum Gun, and Minigun, they're all spray weapons which reward aggressive playstyle, and that's music to the ears of most controller players. The reason why it's important to remember that is because at any moment, Fortnite could effectively nerf the new aim assist simply by making small changes to the current meta. If they add traps back, suddenly jumping into boxes with no fear and barrel stuffing becomes a lot more risky. If they add a new really good shotgun or buff the existing ones, now you're a lot more likely to lose fights where you're spraying your SMG and your enemy's using a shotgun. Or if they were to vault the regular SMGs, now pretty much everybody's going to be running around with a suppressed SMG, and those are actually really weak. Plus, since mythic weapons are basically a central theme of Chapter 2 Season 2, I'd expect them to be removed from the game at the end of the season, so if that ends up being the case, bye-bye to the Mythic Scar, Drum Gun, and Minigun. So that's why I think it's a major overreaction to say that the new aim assist should be nerfed. Honestly, I don't even feel bad for the players that just constantly complained about Legacy, celebrated because it got removed, and now they complain even more than ever because every controller controller player they go up against just jumps into their box with an SMG. And I mean, at the end of the day, is it really the end of the world if controller players have a little more success than normal in the most controller-friendly meta of all time? I know I'm biased here, but I don't see why that's this horrible thing that a lot of pros are saying proves that Fortnite doesn't care about the competitive integrity of their game. Hopefully by the start of next season, this all blows over and stops being such a huge deal. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you watched the entire thing, be sure to let me know with a comment down in the comment section below. What do you guys think about the impact that removing Legacy has had on the game so far? And also, do you think the new aim assist is balanced, or should it be adjusted? Be sure to leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, turn on post notifications, do whatever the heck you want, and I will catch you guys next time.